Now let's have a perspective from the district attorney who has the responsibility for the largest county here in the state of Colorado for dealing with the substance. Mitch.
Thank you. Well, I'm go around the country like Floyd said sometimes. I do not talk about this a lot, but I wanted to point out somebody that is very helpful to me, and I don't know, I guess she just saw it advertised and came, Tamara Banks. And Tamara, actually, if you have Channel 8, if you live in Denver, there is a very popular show called Dialogue Denver DA, and Tamara is the MC for that show, and we film that show a couple of times a year, and a couple of times, every other month. We do 2 shows. This might be a good topic. Maybe we'll invite you on. Can you get his off for me? So I was in Miami, and I was following the Portland DA. And the Portland DA said, well, you know, I'm from Portland, Oregon, and Portland, Oregon's a beautiful city, and it's the San Francisco of the Northwest. And then, of course, I got up, and I'm from Denver, the Amsterdam of the United States. And, you know, I kind of sometimes, you know, we joke about this, and I don't often talk policy. I am not a policy guy. I follow the law, and I enforce the law, and I see things based on the law. So what I'm going to talk to you about is what we have seen. Because when you pass something like this, you have to understand the consequences of it. I am not a medical doctor. I don't talk about the impact on kids. I'm not, you know, I don't do that stuff. I go to murder scenes. I deal with robberies. I deal with burglaries. Yesterday, a police shooting. Those are the kinds of things I do and have done since most of you, I don't see any of you would be old enough to even be around when I started doing this in the early 80s. So let me see if I can get this going.
Folks, for the first time, we're talking about legal recreational marijuana. It's a whole different ball game from medical marijuana, which is used to treat nausea, glaucoma, and the terminal lack of recreational marijuana. Soon, folks, buying weed in Colorado will be as easy as buying cigarettes.
As somebody who is not a Coloradan, you can walk in starting January 1st and you can buy up to a quarter ounce. A Coloradan can buy up to an ounce. And you can do that in this shop and that shop and that shop, so you can buy all day long.
Yes, you can buy weed all day long. It'll be like the parking lot at a Fish concert. And best of all, Fish isn't playing.
You know, Colorado, I think it's interesting that Colorado really was the first state to legalize recreational marijuana, because Colorado really has been on the front edge of marijuana for a long, long time. When I was in high school, marijuana was decriminalized in Colorado. If you had less than an ounce of marijuana, you could not go to jail unless you got too stoned and forgot to go to court. The only thing that could happen was you get a citation and you get fined. So in those places where people were going to jail or maybe going to prison for small amounts of marijuana, that was not happening in the state of Colorado. And in fact, in my career of 30-some years, I can't remember ever in handling dockets both, well, at the felony level, ever seeing a judge send someone to prison for marijuana alone. And if you look at the statistics, of course, Colorado would be taken out of some of this. There just are not people going to prison in this country for marijuana possession. Oh yeah, you can go to prison for distributing large amounts of marijuana, and I can't tell you what they do in places like Texas and things like that. But you can look at the numbers. People are not going to prison for possession of marijuana, primarily in the United States. The other thing that I put this in preemptively because I knew we were going to have a talk, and I always get the whole alcohol issue with that. In my business, alcohol is the worst substance that we deal with. So to compare another substance to it, in my book, you don't want to be like alcohol. About 80-90% of the work I do is because of alcohol. People kill their wives. People do a lot of things. They drive drunk. They hurt people. They kill people because of alcohol. So when this whole comparison to alcohol was made to me, so you want to be alcohol? In the criminal justice system, alcohol is a disaster. The prohibition of alcohol in this country was a disaster. You just look at the history of Denver, and I don't think Floyd's related to any of the small downs, but we had a decade or more of people getting gunned down in the streets of Denver over the prohibition of alcohol. So I understand that that is not a path for alcohol. But when you look at what alcohol does to the people of this country, I think it is the worst substance, even though it's legal for some in the criminal justice system. The other thing is the budgetary problems. And you know, I think with marijuana, it's pretty hard for us to stand up here 2 years or 10 years, depending on what marijuana you're looking into, medical or recreational, to know what really you guys are going to face when you're our age about the types of secondary things that marijuana may cause. Mental health, physical, and I told you I'm not a doctor, so I'm not here to tell you you're going to get cancer from this stuff or anything like that. I just know when it comes to tobacco and to alcohol, when you tax them, they are losers. You don't get the money that they cost our society in the criminal justice system, in the medical system. And what I always tell these guys in this industry, are you setting aside a lot of cash when the lawyers come after you? And maybe some of you in the room will be those lawyers. But the class action lawyers are going to go after this industry at some point, just like they did the tobacco industry. So let's talk about, and this would really be the perfect thing. Legalization, Colorado's economy improves, the quality of life is better, people are happier, and there's a decrease in crime. And actually, we were going through a phase where there was a decrease in crime, and I saw people kind of relating, the marijuana, reducing crime, looks like things are good in Colorado. Things aren't good in Denver. 2012, our crime rate has gone up 44% across the board. Every neighborhood in our city saw an increase in crime. So I'm bringing that up, not because I believe marijuana causes it. I believe I know what causes it, and they're actually in session right now down at the Capitol, but we won't go there today. But I'm not, and nobody think that I'm saying that this rise in crime is because of the legalization of marijuana. We have huge population coming to Denver and to Colorado. That may have an impact. But the one thing I am pretty proud of is that for 8 years of my career, the crime rate went down in the city of Denver. And like Floyd talked about DNA, I think primarily because we started using DNA different, we started to catch a whole lot of habitual criminals. Of course, they don't hold on to them very long when we catch them and convict them. But we have seen an increase in local law enforcement as far as cost goes with the increase of marijuana. Really, that whole idea that you'd get that citation for the low amounts, well, now that's been replaced by the consumption. So what they are doing is writing tickets, again, not arresting, but writing tickets for people that are smoking on the 16th Street Mall, and you see the increase there. So as far as any savings on just the basic level, we're not seeing it. It's not there. The one thing about marijuana, it is a very distinctive smell. It's a lot like getting hit by a skunk. We all know what that smell is. And so to use it in public, which is illegal, is something that you get caught fairly quickly at. These are kind of just some recent stats on what we're doing, and you may have trouble seeing this, and I apologize. I got it this morning, so I don't think they could be any fresher than that. But these are kind of the old-time marijuana charges, you know, possession, unlawful distribution, those types of things. And you can see there's increases in some. Great news as far as our parks go, a major reduction in our parks where families and things like that are. So you can see that, you know, that you see some big increases and then you see some. But the point here is that law enforcement has not been taken out of this loop. I got called by somebody from the New York Times, and they said, well, isn't this going to free up a whole bunch of your cops to go do other things? And I said, you really believe we've got like a force out there running down guys with less than an ounce of marijuana? Do you really think the Denver police do that? No. I mean, most of the time when we have marijuana in a serious case, okay, you had marijuana, and we would move on and make the serious charges or try to charge the cases that we had. The more concerning thing, I think, are the marijuana, and the Denver police call this the marijuana-related crime. And I'll point out a couple of them that always concern me. You'll notice homicide is not on here, and that's a good thing. We have some. They are clearly marijuana-related, but don't title them that till you've solved them. And they don't solve these kind of crimes. They're not solving them. My office is the only office in the state of Colorado so far that has successfully prosecuted one of these home invasion murders, and they date back before before they were medical marijuana situations. But robberies always concern me. They usually involve a weapon. And in these settings, they involve people being laid on the floor. They involve people, you know, you got to get the safe open somehow. And there's usually somebody that does that. There's not a lot of those, but those are scary, and they eventually lead sometimes to murder. You're all eating pizza. One of my more memorable cases was when the manager of a Blackjack Pizza was laid down on the floor and up on Colfax, and a gun went off and blew his brains out. The two individuals involved pointed the finger at each other, but that's what happens in robberies. And the other thing is burglaries, because I know when you break into a place, certainly someone's home, but these are usually businesses, there is always an opportunity, there's always a chance that someone will get hurt. Most of the burglaries that we see are warehouses, and they try to do it when no one's there, and they try to defeat very, very strong security. So they'll come through the ceilings, they'll do all kinds of things to try to not set off the security. Black market is alive and well and sometimes violent. Just to give you an idea, you know, not a huge increase in the number of cases, but a huge increase in the volume of marijuana that's being brought in those cases. So we used to get about 162 pounds a case. Now we're getting 5,724 pounds a case. It makes our crime lab smell like marijuana. So there's been a huge increase. And really what that's about is the illegal grow operations. And I think that as the country starts to legalize this more and more, maybe we'll see less and less of that, because that is leaving our state. That's not marijuana you're not smoking it unless you're on the streets of New York, because it's worth a whole lot more there than it is here. And that's why there is such an illegal grow operation. And the Denver police, because the DEA is not involved in this, is starting to take down those bigger and bigger grows. The violent deaths, like I say, the good news around recreational is we haven't seen the 20+ violent deaths we've seen with medical marijuana. Medical marijuana is a bad model in a home. Lots of money, lots of marijuana in a home. Home invasion homicides. We are a make-my-day state, so some of those homicides are the bad guys. The best one I thought was, we had a double homicide in Denver, 2 kids laid down on the ground, both executed. The two guys the next week broke into another provider in Aurora. She had an AR-15, and she gunned them down. Hit her husband, little friendly fire. Good news was she didn't hit the toddler that was there when they were distributing the marijuana. The guns all matched back. We solved our double homicide. They were both dead. One was hit 7 times, the other 3 times in the head. AR-15, so they should have brought more firepower. Good news is we're not seeing that yet with recreational marijuana because the model is different. It's not in the home. And my hope is that we will not see, as time goes on, that reproduced. And then the crime, like I say, I've talked about that. The robberies, this is what these guys will go to. These guys are wearing like blue scuba outfits. They knew exactly when to hit, closing time, when the pot shop had the most money and the most product. They did not steal the edibles for some reason, but this is how they dressed to pull that robbery. Burglaries, that's where you break in to commit a crime. And, you know, I can't really vouch for the numbers here, but anytime you're dealing with crime stats, they go up and down. You know, we saw a reduction in robberies or in burglaries last year around warehouses, that type of thing. But basically, NBC did this, and they said that a marijuana-related business would probably be about once or twice a year, once every 2 years, I guess, should expect to be the victim of either a burglary or a robbery. This is a very disturbing thing that I hope we now have a trend on, and that's these people that make hash oil in their homes. It is a very disturbing trend that the state, I hope, has now got a handle on by saying you can't do this. But that doesn't usually stop the criminal element. But we've had, and these places just blow up when they are making hash oil. And we've seen a huge increase in that over the last 2 years. These people just get burned up. Their hands melt, that type of thing. They all require surgery. And I don't know if you've ever seen somebody that suffered a serious burn to their faces and to their hands, but it is an incredible injury. And thus far, it's only been the cooks that have burned themselves up. We had one that was actually in a tent in an alley in Denver. The guy that blew these oil cans down the street about a block, and the guys were on fire when they got into the car. I said they shouldn't be hard to find. They were actually on fire when they got into the car to drive away. Obviously, this is a concern for any district attorney as impaired drivers of whatever substance. We've seen an increase there of people that are driving under the influence of the drug of marijuana. In just 1 year, 100% increase. We have 17 hit and runs a day in the city and county of Denver. So I can't tell you those are all marijuana related. Some are alcohol related because the guys run. And they're from fender benders to fatals, where maybe 2 little boys got killed up on Quebec a couple of years ago. These people flee. I can't tell you if that's because of cell phones. I can't tell you if that's because of marijuana, but 17 a day is the average that we have there. Child abuse, obviously children are involved in these homes, people are using them. Real sad story of a little boy that just got left to his own, started a fire and killed himself. Not only did he and his little brother have THC on board, but his parents, who were out partying in the living room, also got charged with contributing to the delinquency of the minors, the kids they weren't related to, that they were smoking marijuana with. We have seen kids getting poisoned, little kids getting into the edibles. You can see the increases there, and you can see where we sit as far as the national average goes when it comes to kids getting poisoned they don't die, but they get poisoned. Contributing to the delinquency of a minor is another thing that we've seen. We've prosecuted people for giving kids edibles when they don't know it's marijuana that they're eating. We've prosecuted people for getting marijuana for people. As long as you don't allow kids to have marijuana, you will have a black market. There's no doubt about that. And you can see where our kids in Denver use marijuana, or at least admit to using marijuana, at twice the national level for the rest of the United States. So what we see are the patterns. It's kids encouraging the use. It's kids, adults that are getting high with minors, and then adults that are taking advantage sometimes. That's the lesser group of that pattern, taking advantage of kids that are high. We do have a lot of homeless kids that come to Denver. It's kind of the Emerald City. They think they're going to work in this industry. They're too young to. And they end up homeless. And you know what happens when kids are homeless on your streets. They get propositioned for all kinds of horrible things. And the last thing I have is animal cruelty. A good friend of mine, Kevin Fitzgerald, is actually my cousin. He is one of the top veterinarians in the city. He's written an incredible peer-reviewed paper on the impact of marijuana on dogs primarily. He has seen some other animals that have eaten, but dogs will eat like these brownies until the brownie dish is gone, and then the impact on them. I will tell you, I don't believe we have charged anyone with animal cruelty yet when it comes to them, their animal getting into their stash. And that's all I have. Thank you.